Hi, I'm Sherrie Everett, and I'm running for mayor. I came to BYU in 1979, and I fell in love with Provo, and I've never left. While I was at BYU, I was the first woman through the BYU recording engineering program and was hired out during my senior year and began working in Salt Lake. Soon I had the opportunity to start our family and had a beautiful baby boy, and I didn't want to miss out on it, so I made a real big career change in my life and began to do some marketing on my own at my home. Started out as a mom with a Mac, and I've built a business that has marketed for home builders, for healthcare, for real estate, for education. We've also done work for tourism and restaurants. We've also had an opportunity to work with a company up in Salt Lake that built in Daybreak, and got to watch the process there and watch them become a really successful builder. Also worked outside the state and consulted on some large national accounts, and recently helped Mia Love become elected as a congressman when she won her first election, and learned a lot of things. I have a daughter now. Also, my children are 8 years apart. They're all grown up, so I'm an empty nester at home, and have spent a lot of my time raising them. I became a single mother when my daughter was 5, and so I run my business and became a city council member in 2008. I've served on a lot of committees throughout the state for nonprofits. Just to name a few of the committees I've served on NeighborWorks, where we work with low to mod income housing, and it's really more workforce housing to help those in the community that may or may not be able to afford housing to be able to have a path to home ownership, and that organization works to help create homeowners. And we've expanded all throughout the state. Serving currently there as the secretary of that organization on the board. And then I've served on Community Health Connect, which helps people access health care that may not be able to. And they work with a network of medical professionals to solve problems for people that are in need. And so I have a real compassion for those in our community that need access to some help. And those in our community that are trying to better their circumstances. After I left the council, and a lot of people have asked me why I didn't run for a second term, and that was because my daughter was graduating from high school, and she just had a couple of years left. And there are times and seasons for everything in life, and I wanted to give my time to her, so I decided not to be on the council at that point, and to serve in other capacities. So one of the capacities that I had an opportunity to serve in was on Provo's Transportation Mobility Advisory Committee. And that's been a really interesting experience, helping our community to create better transportation solutions. And we're advisory to the council, we're advisory to the Planning Commission. And I've served with some really great individuals from our community in that capacity. And then a few years, or about a year and a half ago, I wanted, UTA had an opening, and I decided that we needed to go and represent Provo's interests at UTA and Utah Valley's interests. And I did that because I'm really concerned about growth and how we grow well and protect and preserve the quality of life that we love and the charm of our community. And so I've been working at UTA for the last, serving at UTA in a position up there on the board of directors or the board of trustees. And on the board of trustees, I am currently serving as their vice chair. And we've been working on 3 years of reforms. When I got there, they were already 2 years into it, where we just finished the third, and we have started the strategic plan for the next couple of decades as we're looking at it. So that's been a great experience, and I think all of those experiences give me a unique ability to draw on that to help bring that back for Provo. Everything I've done has been to gain that experience because I care about this community and I want us to make the most of our opportunities. So parking seems to be a pain point for this community. And I think that's because there's a point where all of us experience when there's not enough parking or parking becomes less convenient than we desire. As a member of TMAC and serving as the chair there, we've been reviewing some of the parking studies that have been done by the community. And one of the main outcomes of those studies was to hire a parking administrator, and I'm excited that we've taken that step and to be able to work with that person as mayor to be able to implement some of the experiences that and information and the recommendations that were provided in that parking study. Three of the things that I think have been really identified as important things that we need to look at is we need to look at parking whether it relates to supply and demand or whether it's a ability to be able to better utilize the asset that we have. In the case of Joaquin neighborhood and some of the neighborhoods around our universities, it's really more about parking and demand and having that asset or the parking spaces available to our residents that may live there and also managing the parking in our parking area. And we haven't really had the resources to do that until now and until we've identified some of these things. So we'll begin to work on implementing some solutions. We'll have the resources available to us that'll allow us to do that, and we'll lean on the expertise of that parking coordinator to bring those recommendations and help us as a community become informed about how to solve the current challenges. Parking will always be a challenge, especially as we grow, but there are measures that we can take that will help remove some of those pain points. As it relates to downtown, we have a significant amount of parking in downtown, but our pain point comes when we can't park in front of the store that we want to be at. And so we need to look at how we're going to solve some of those solutions. And one of the things that we've talked about when I was on the council was how to create maybe through the block solutions or a circulator in our downtown with a trolley or a bus or something that picks people up at the parking garages and delivers them closer. And so we're going to be exploring those kinds of solutions that make our downtown experience better and be able to bring more people downtown. One of the other things that we all care about is our air quality in our community. And more cars presents a challenge with that. And so one of the things we focused on in TMAC is our policies in the city as it relates to all modes of transportation. We have walkers, we have moms with strollers, we have cyclists, we have people that are, we have vehicles and delivery vehicles that need to bring products and things to our commercial centers. We have cars, and we're adding transit options in as well that will help us in this effort. And so I think as how we use all of these options and how we build those pedestrian enhancements in will be really important for how we move forward as a city. And I believe that I bring the experience that we need and at least the awareness and education to be able to hit the ground running when we begin to implement and talk about how those solutions should be applied. So one of the things I'm often asked about is the county's lawsuit against the city. And first of all, up front, I want to say that I don't know exactly, what is in that lawsuit. I haven't addressed the lawsuit, but I was actually there on the council when we made the parking agreement and we're in the discussions. And there was always a really good agreement between the city and the county that we would put that parking in place as the downtown developed, and it was anticipated that there would be a place for that. I think it's interesting that we're kind of at the nuclear option of filing a lawsuit, and I would really hope that we would go back and look at how we could solve this problem in the most productive way. We're all the same taxpayers between the county and the city, and granted, we have other taxpayers in the county that are moving, but there are things that we can do to help each other, and we need each other. And I don't believe that it really needs to be contentious. We can find a solution and explore a solution that will work for us. We think, I remember while I was on the council that this was something that was really important. We set aside these spaces. We have these spaces, as is my understanding, in proximity to the convention center. But as we continue to develop our downtown, I think it's a problem that we can solve. And I don't think it needs to be as contentious as it is. I have a great relationship with several of the commissioners, and look forward to being able to discuss this, work, and find a way so that we're not spending needless money on lawsuits. So I wanted to talk a little bit about transportation. I used to help Becky Lockhart with a lot of her work and reaching out to her constituents, and grew to love and respect Becky not only as a friend but really as a policymaker and a legislator. And I watched what she did with I-15, which was a visionary project, and she lined the funding up and she figured everything out and got the buy-in and went through the education process, and she really did a great job. It was inspirational to me. Right now, Utah County has the largest growth potential of any other county in the state, and it's coming. But it's interesting to me that there are a lot of great women that have been involved. Becky on the roads. Our UDOT Region 3 director is Terry Newell, and she is a very smart, capable, and incredibly good division leader. UTA just hired Mary DeLamar Schaefer, who has deep roots in this community. She used to work here in Provo. But Mary is the new regional director for UTA, and she is making great inroads with helping to shape the transit aspect of this, and to help BRT become a success. And then for me to be able to be on the UTA board and guide the policy of that organization and help them become better and more accountable, and to be able to direct the direction of where we are headed, to be able to be the solution for some of this growth. It's been exciting for me. But one of the most exciting parts to me is to be engaged on this local level, and that's been on our Transportation Mobility Advisory Committee in Provo. And I'm serving as the chair there now. And to be able to take and look at our street master planning and how to connect our grids together and do things that will matter for generations to come. To help to work with our bicycle community to craft a bicycle master plan that is now changing how many in our community are getting around, and it will become even more important for generations to come. To be able to work on our downtown and how those streets and how the streetscapes are, and to work on how the BRT comes through our downtown and responds to how the businesses are working along the avenue. That's kind of wonky and kind of weird, but I love being able to put those things in place. That's part of the conditions that we're programming in. We have an amazing downtown restaurants, and I'm just going to put a little plug here because you asked me about big box, and we all want that. We all want some of those options, but the real gem in Provo is our local restaurants and our local restaurant owners and our local businesses and boutiques and things like that. We need both of them. We don't want to hurt our local businesses because that is what brings some of the charm to Provo. But to be able to develop a national restaurant culture down here would be a very, very cool additional layer to Provo. And it will be very important to our visitors as they come to be in, to meet with these companies. We really need to go up to that 30,000 look and see how all these things come together. And when we program it, they come. Parking is kind of a 10,000 foot problem. We're kind of down in the weeds trying to solve our pain as it relates to that. But if we come back up in the picture and we start looking at economic development, we really need to address the things that unleash the opportunities in our community. We have unbelievable opportunities that are coming. They're on the horizon. We have a medical school that will be coming here. We have tech that will be coming here. A lot of people are worried because it's growing up in Lehigh, but Provo is furnishing a lot of that startup talent and that medium talent. And my goodness, we have Qualtrics here that is having explosive growth. And so we are just really at the beginning of a tech explosion in the area. And that tech explosion invites a lot of jobs, a lot of business. And I think we can deal with those opportunities. If we create the right conditions in our community, then those experiences, those businesses will come here. So let me give you an example of how that works. There are a lot of components that go into a company being willing to make an investment in a community. And as they come and consider that investment in our community, then there are certain conditions that they look for and certain opportunities. They need a workforce. One of the reasons Lehigh has attracted so much tech talent is one of the needs of those companies was to be able to draw talent from Utah County and also from Salt Lake County. So they've created conditions that have met that need. As we look at our situation in Provo, we have some very important redevelopment opportunities and some very important economic development opportunities. The ones that I've identified are the mix that is coming in Plumtree Plaza. That will be an incredible benefit for our community. And the reason it's there is that we have a transit station going in there. That's a busy corridor. It represents an opportunity for those businesses that will be coming in there and for that developer to program the businesses that will be coming in there. And they're coming because he can see a return on his investment. We have a potential medical school coming to this community. We want that medical school in this community. And the reason we want that medical school in this community is that it will begin to attract med tech. It will begin to attract tech software, and that plays very well in to the tech play up in our Silicon Slopes area. We begin to extend that down into our community. But what do we need to have them come here? Are we willing to create the conditions to have them here? And are we looking long-term enough that we understand for the next decade, the next 2 decades, the next 3 decades, that those opportunities will begin to build? We have opportunities in our downtown with our convention center and adding additional hotels and additional buildings and additional residential to be able to connect this whole area. One last example. We have a transit-oriented development area in our community, and I think that will be one of the most important emerging discussions that we have. And let me tell you why we need to pay attention to how this transit-oriented development area develops. It will bring tax revenue back to our communities, but most of all, it'll bring tax revenue back to our school districts. And we have our own school district here in Provo, and so if we want to increase the opportunity for education for this generation, for the next generation, for our grandchildren, for our great-grandchildren, then we need to really understand how economic development plays a key role. So in Draper, the front runner station in Draper was purchased and held by UTA, and they had a development partner up there. When they purchased the land, it was worth only $6 million. Now, well, let me tell you, 2 years ago, the valuation with the development on that land was $125 million. It had seen a significant increase. 2 years later, the valuation of that land has doubled. So all of the tax revenue from property tax, income tax, sales tax gets distributed to the state, gets distributed to our county, it gets distributed to our cities and our school districts. And that keeps taxes low for individual homeowners because those infrastructure costs and that education costs are picked up by high value economic projects. So as we're looking at those kinds of things happening in our community, we need to not be so scared about if we grow and if we add economic development. What we need to be concerned about is creating the conditions that economic development occurs. That when those companies come and they look at what's here, it's what they need. It's what they need to thrive and to flourish and to attract good talent to their jobs. That's the part we should be concerned about, because if we do that, they'll come. So a lot of us wanted a Trader Joe's here, and oh my goodness, Provo showed up to really shout from the rooftops that we wanted a Trader Joe's. And when Trader Joe's came, they came to Orem. And some of us are kind of scratching our heads and wondering why, but the real reason why is that Orem created the conditions that would assure that Trader Joe's would have a return on their investment. If you put Trader Joe's in Riverwoods, if you look to the north and to the east, there isn't a lot of population, and it's kind of out of the way, and so they don't have the traffic counts. They don't have the population to draw on. And if you're an investor and you're ready to plop down tens of millions of dollars on a store, you want to go in a place where you're assured that you can make money. So there are metrics that these companies have. And if we meet the metrics, if we create the conditions, then they'll come. So one of our greatest opportunities to bring some of these bigger box stores or bigger box restaurants or name brand restaurants is in our mall area in East Bay. Think if we put a medical center in East Bay, you're going to bring in med tech, you're going to bring all those bodies in, you're going to bring people going to school. If you put some, if you redevelop the mall like City Creek, like a City Creek-esque type environment there, then you're going to have programmed into that what you need to bring a Cheesecake Factory or to bring a Whole Foods in or things like that. We can't just stomp our feet and say we want it. Just like out on the west side where we want a grocery store. We can't just stomp our feet and say we want it if we're not willing to do our part in assuring that the companies that come are profitable in that investment. Social media is more important than ever. I think I was maybe the first elected official in Provo that ever did anything with social media. And I'll have to say in 2008, social media is not anything like it is nowadays. But what we've loved about Mayor Curtis is that he's perfected it in a way. He has really taken it to a new level. And he's brought voices into the conversation that has engaged more and more and more people in understanding what the challenges and the opportunities are in our community. I spend a lot of time on Facebook because I like to connect with the community. I like to help them have information that I've learned through the years of my experience in serving wherever I've served. It's exciting to me when there are more voices that understand the challenges and the problems and what we're trying to solve. And the best benefit is connecting community. I've met some great friends throughout the community on social media. We'll be using a lot of social media because I fundamentally believe in my heart that when you trust the citizens with information, together we make good decisions. And we make decisions that are important for the future. And so I think social media is an essential aspect moving forward. So one of the main responsibilities a city does is to be able to develop projects. And I've seen a lot of divisiveness in our community as we have sought to try to understand the whys, the hows, the process related to these kinds of developments. Provo prepares a capital improvement plan for a 5-year outlook. And as part of that capital improvement plan, it exists in a book that's downloadable and you have to really, run through the whole thing. But what I would really like to do, because I think it's more transparent to our citizens, is create an online tool that shows those capital improvement plans. And that when we click on our neighborhood or we click on an area of our city or we look at a big overall project, that we can see an online timeline that will show us the steps that we've taken, how long it's been in process, where's the opportunities for the public to engage and to give feedback and do all of those things, which bodies in our city have to make approvals and where we're at in that process, and create a way that with that timeline, we can notify, you could subscribe to that particular project and be notified all the way through. The BRT project in our community was a 19-year project, and still at the end, we were hearing, I've never heard about this. If we had a project timeline that existed on our city website, and the technology exists now to be able to do that, and you could see where we've come and what decisions have been made all the way along the path, I think that we could eliminate a lot of the discord in our community, and that we would be able to understand the purpose and vision for these projects, where the revenue's coming from, and be able to get that straight information. And I think as citizens, you deserve that. Provo's changed every decade since its inception. If you go back and look at historical pictures of the community on Center Street, it's actually quite entertaining. And you get to see how our community has evolved almost through every decade into something new. So growth really is a principle that is a given. So we really can't stop growth without having unbelievable consequences to those actions that hurt our economy, that hurt our jobs, that hurt things in our community, and put more burdens upon citizens that live here to support city infrastructure and other things that will age out. So we need to guide growth. We need to do it in an intelligent way. And we need to do it in a way that takes into consideration the actual problems and challenges we're trying to solve and the opportunities that we're trying to seize. Now, I think the thing that scares us when we're talking about growth is that we don't want to lose the charm of our community. So let me talk a little bit about that. We love our downtown. We love the charm and the character of our downtown. We love the charm and the character of our historic neighborhoods. We need to fiercely protect those. And the downtown will continue to develop, but it doesn't mean that we have to lose the elements that create the actual aesthetic or charm there. But the real charm in Provo is the people and the relationships and the sense of community. That's our true asset of our charm, and how we reach out and help and take care of each other, and how we rally, and how we respect each other, and how we embrace our college students. Now, as we look at growth, we are going to grow. And the reason we're going to grow is because our children love it here. My children live here. And your children, many of your children do too. And we want to live close to those that we love. So let's grow gracefully. Let's provide a multiplicity of housing types in our community in the right places that allows them to have a place to start, to be able to come and be part of the culture of this community, and to contribute their businesses and their jobs and their talents and their ideas to this community. As we look at growth, it comes down to master planning. We have master plans in some places of the city. That's what guides growth, and coming together and using the expertise of those in our city that we pay very well to be experts, coupled with input from our citizens and understanding the data that has been prepared by our planning organizations throughout the county and the state, we can make decisions that balance the challenges and the opportunities that are before us. And I believe my experience in the Provo Vision 2030 experience on the steering committee, as well as on some of the subcommittees, has helped me to capture a vision of what Provo already wants in growth and what they want for this community. The 2050 plan is being finished up. We'll be able to look at that and be able to look at the benchmarks that are there. It's been exciting to see some of the 2030 vision come to place. We can do this. We have the tools, we have the expertise, we have the data, we have the opportunities, and if we create that and work together as a community to make good things happen, think what we can do for the generations that come after us. So housing is another pain point in this community. And, we're going to be a university town. We're actually a 2-university town, and we may have a medical school soon. But we need housing that is affordable. Now, I think we've done ourselves a disservice in this community by just defining affordable housing as low-income housing or mod-income housing. And that's not right. Affordability in housing has to do with workforce housing. For example, St. George, NeighborWorks has just moved into the St. George market down there, and they have a housing crisis because they are not able to house their workforce in their community because the homes are too expensive, the apartments are too expensive, and so you have bank tellers and technicians and nurses and people living an hour and a half out of St. George commuting in because they can't afford to live in St. George. And it's a vicious cycle for them. I don't think we need to be afraid of providing housing in our community for our workforces. We can do it in a way that it's well designed and that it's intelligent, and we can create that kind of balance. It's important because we don't just necessarily want to send people out. We want to give them an opportunity within our community. And so we need to work with the companies, the nonprofits in our area more effectively. We need to work with developers to incorporate some of that affordability factor into some of their developments so that we're interspersing that throughout more of our community. No one else in this election has the experience in the discussions dealing with affordability and affordable housing. I also have a lot of experience coming from the housing industry, and I know that the home building industry is very concerned because land prices are escalating. And that means that housing prices are also escalating. Now, if you're a homeowner, you like that your house is now worth more. But that also creates an affordability issue for rentals and workforce. And so we want to look at ways that we can maintain our workforce housing in our community because it's essential for our economy. So when I bought my house on the west side in 2000, I was the 5th house in my subdivision, and it has exploded around us. I became involved as a neighborhood chair, and I became involved as an area rep, and one of the things that I started out doing was working on what was then known as the Celebration Master Plan that would happen just west of the house and just west of my house and just north of the new high school. That was a great experience, and I brought my experience in marketing from the Daybreak experience to the table on that discussion. We later adopted that plan while I was on the council. And so a lot of the planning has been done north of the river, but we're now in a big discussion about south of the river. And there are things that I love about the west side. I love the open space. I love the proximity to the lake. We have some of the most beautiful, beautiful views. I don't think the west side name does it justice. I really think that we ought to look at calling it Provost Lake District, just like we refer to the river bottoms, but call it Provost Lake District or our historic neighborhoods. I'd like it to have a regional name like that. And I think as I've talked to a lot of west side residents, they like the name Provost Lake District. It is aspirational about what we can become. And it has the most developable land, and perhaps the only developable land really left in Provo that has large enough areas to be able to master plan. So we value things like open space, we value things like agriculture, we value things like community and family, and we value how we live. One of the things I think that we could do better is to have a variety of housing types for those that want to start. It makes for a healthier neighborhood in the long run. And if we give some variety, and that sometimes means that we may live closer together in some areas. I hear oftentimes people that live out in Provo's Lake District that are ready to retire, and they're ready to give up their home to one of these new young families and move into something that better fits their needs so that they can travel and do that. But we haven't really provided for that market. And so as we're looking at planning, let's come up to the 30,000 foot level. Let's look at how the roadways work. Let's look at how the housing works. Let's look how the park spaces work and the open spaces and our trail systems. I also think we need to look at how the airport's going to expand. These are things that I've been working on now for almost 2 decades in the city. I've served on the airport board. I've served on citizens committees planning the roadways out there, and then all the way through that process through TMAC to get that roadway in place. And we sometimes look at that roadway and we say it goes nowhere, but the expertise of our planners know what's going to happen, and they're already starting to begin to put the infrastructure in there. And the importance of that road was that it prevented such a road from going through the centers of our neighborhoods, and it takes the traffic out and around, and it will eventually connect up into Vineyard and maybe even to the Pony Express Highway up by leading out to Saratoga Springs. It'll be another roadway that will help us to be able to move around in our community. Let's talk a little bit about the airport for a second. We have an emerging regional airport. Did you know that our airport is the second busiest airport in the entire state of Utah? And yet airports like Cedar City and St. George have beautiful terminals. With Utah Valley expanding to 1.6 million people in the next 30 years, which is double of what it is now, we're going to need a regional airport. It doesn't need to be an airport the size of Salt Lake International. This is just a small airport, and we're all hoping to have an opportunity to have more carriers come in. In order to do that, we're going to have to look at a terminal, an airport terminal discussion. How we fund that. How big does it need to be? What's the space requirements for it? What will be the second and third stages to be able to bring that in? Now think of the tech boom that's coming. Think of a medical school. Go back up to the 30,000 foot level in our community, and this asset on our west side is very important. Another thing that we're talking about is the Provo River Delta out there being moved by the federal government in order to recover that area for us to be able to move forward with the objectives on Utah Lake. You want somebody in Provo who has been engaged in this discussion on every level for the last 2 decades to be able to come into that discussion, because the decisions that will be made in the next years will be critical. They will be absolutely critical. And we don't have the affordability at this point to have a learning curve. What we really need is somebody with the experience, the expertise, and the relationships in place to guide us in being able to execute the best solutions and the opportunities without undermining the things that we love out there. We've been talking for decades about zoning compliance in this city. And it's been a wedge that has been unhelpful to us in some aspects. And let me explain why I think it's been unhelpful to us. Because that wedge has been allowed to drive us apart in many respects. I do believe that there's a place for zoning enforcement. And I believe that it should take care of the worst cases and assure that people have safe places to live, and that a property right of someone who lives in one house does not infringe on the property rights of the person who lives next door. So how do we address zoning compliance in our community in a way that's positive and productive? I think that when you create good conditions in that neighborhood, when you create a sense of community, it helps all ships to rise. When paint goes on one house, other houses begin to follow. When a neighbor cleans up their yard or cuts their grass or cuts a friend's grass, you're building community in that respect. Now, we have a lot of absentee landlords in our community. We have a rental dwelling license ordinance that's in place to assure that they have that those that live in those places, and that if you're going to operate a business, that those places have a safety standard and a health standard. But my concern is that we don't want to become a police state as a city. I think sometimes when we address zoning, if we focus solely on one tool and one piece of it, we miss the opportunity to affect change in a way that would be greater. I would like to work with the council on some things that I've seen done in other communities. I'd like to work with the council on helping us create the conditions that we want in our neighborhoods. And I have some ideas about helping to improve our housing and improve compliance to zoning that may not necessarily be overly resource heavy in our community and overreaching in any way. I understand from being on the council how important zoning compliance is. And I believe that they think it's a great tool to be able to net some results. But I think it's also a wedge in our community, and we need to find a way to approach it in a unified way. When I came on the council in 2008, one of the things that I was really focused on was helping our downtown become better. We have an aging city center, and it's starting to cost us a lot in maintenance, in repairs, in ongoing challenges and problems and upgrades and things for us to be able to keep ahead of the operations of our community as they've evolved over the few decades. One of the things we need to consider in our community is that we are losing some opportunities, some economic opportunities, because of the loss of that block to our downtown. As we move forward, we've been seeing a few ideas come forward about what could be programmed onto that block. But really, I'd like to back up, because I may inherit this opportunity, and I think it should happen just like it did with the rec center. We need to define where we want to go. How big does it need to be? What elements need to be there? What are we going to create, and what's the synergy that we want to have happen in that downtown? We want it to be the anchor to the west end of Center Street, but could it also include an event center that draws people to our downtown? Could it also include a concert or an expansion of our Covey Center to include larger concerts and venues that more of our community wants to come, or even a health center type theater experience in our downtown? We need bodies in our downtown. And so as we look at that, we need to look at what the results are. And we need to look 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because that city center will be there for a long time to come. So we need to be able to look at what their future needs may be. Also, as part of that discussion is the public safety building. We have an unsafe building that would hurt our first responders in the event of an earthquake. They deserve, with the risks of policing and the challenges that they have, they deserve to have a facility that meets their needs, that keeps them safe, that helps them train for the challenges they meet when they go out on patrol. So my promise is that we're going to have this conversation over the next 4 years. We're going to figure this out. And we're going to do it just like we did in the rec center and with the school bond, is that we are going to come and talk to the public. We're going to share the need. We're going to help you understand the problems and challenges that we're wrestling with. We're going to invite that input. We're going to have the discussion. And then I hope that it goes to the ballot, and as an informed community member, you will understand and make a decision about how we're going to accomplish this. We can figure out the funding. We can figure out whether there's private-public partnerships. We can figure out whether we lease ground underneath a hotel or underneath businesses or things like that. We can figure that out, but we need to do that in partnership with you. My vision for the next 4 years is to continue the vision that we all worked on in Vision 2030, and by extension, Vision 2050. I'm there with experience from many different areas, from transit, from planning, from home building, from business development, from downtown, and from within our community and within our affordable housing sector, to be able to apply that experience to the challenges that are in front of us. Our vision, my vision for downtown, is that I hope that we are able to do the redevelopment of the mall. I want to support the $500 million investment that we have in this community to create the conditions where businesses and industry want to come. I want a medical school in this community. I want us to do what it takes and not be short-sighted enough that we lose out on an opportunity for generations to come. I want to be part of the tech boom that's coming. I want us to be able to continue to be the startup place, actually the #1 startup place in the entire nation. I want eyes to be here so that when we invite people to come, and when we invite those businesses and those opportunities to come, we have set the conditions in place and the potential in place for future generations and for now. So my vision is that we really seize the opportunity in our economic opportunity, and that at the same time, we change the discussion in Provo from being neighborhoods against business or this ideology against this ideology, and change that ideology to be an and discussion. We can have business, we can have housing, we can have opportunity, and we can preserve and protect our neighborhoods. We can enhance our neighborhoods. We can create this incredible quality of life. We're set up for the most exciting time in Provo's future. We've been through a pretty exciting last 8 years, and Mayor Curtis has done an incredible job of executing on many aspects of Provo's vision. I believe that I'm what Provo needs next, to be able to carry that vision forward, to carry your vision, and to help you understand the possibilities of what the vision is that some of our experts are seeing and how we fit into this regional picture of our entire county. I also hope that we have an airport terminal by the end of 4 years, because we're going to need it to be able to service what we have coming. So after watching all of this, if you're still asking why you should vote for me, I think you could sum it up in one word: experience. I have prepared myself ever since leaving office as a volunteer, serving on committees, to be able to be prepared to help serve Provo. I've always had Provo's best interests at mind. I've always been able to balance the needs of our neighborhoods with the needs of our businesses and the needs of our vision and looking forward. So more than any other candidate in this race, I have the experience. And I'm so grateful that all of these other candidates are running and that they have the same desire to contribute back to Provo. My experience in preparation has been pretty extensive, and some of these other candidates are just beginning, but we need them. We need them to come and contribute what they can to Provo and to be part of that and to prepare and to get the kind of experience that I've gained over the last several years so that they're prepared to lead in the future. Join me. Come be part of my campaign. Come be part of this experience of working together so that Provo can move towards the future that our children, that our grandchildren deserve, and that is exciting for us without losing the charm of our sense of community together. So if you want to engage with me in this campaign, you can go to my website at sherriehalleverett.com. You can always find me on Facebook. I'm there quite often and I respond quickly. I have a page there called Sherrie Hall Everett for Provost Mayor, and you can find me there, and be sure to friend me as a friend because I love being able to connect with you that way. I'm on Instagram. Sherrie Hall Everett is my Instagram handle. And I'm just going to throw a little plug in. I'm a gardener. I love to garden. And I have a little Instagram called Sherrie's Garden. We've got 22,000 followers from around the world. And it's just pictures of my garden. But you can check that out too, because that's another aspect of myself that people don't really get because of my public service. So I'll just throw that one in there. And then I'm on Twitter, but not completely. So you can find me in those areas. Give me a call on the phone if you have a question. Send me an email. But get involved in this campaign. Learn about the issues and hire somebody as your mayor for what Provo needs next.